Hello everyone, welcome to the Books of Morgan. I'm Morgan and today I'm going to be doing a book unhaul. I have 24 or 25 books. 24. I have 24 books to unhaul with you today, and I was really inspired to do some decluttering because at the end of the summer I do have to move and I've been getting new books for quarantine and stuff, and it's just time for me to get rid of some books on my shelf, make room for books that I really am excited about. When I unhaul books, it's usually books that I've actually read. So majority of the books on my unhaul are books that I have read, I'm no longer interested in, I just want to get rid of. What I do with my unhauled books is that I first ask my friends if they are interested in any of these, and then I'll give it to them. And then any books that my friends are not interested in, I drop off at my neighborhood little library. Because of quarantine and stuff, I'm gonna hold off on dropping my books off at the library, so I have some time to kind of think about which books I want to get rid of. I can even add more books to this pile later on and all that jazz. So there are 3 books that I actually have not read that I'm going to get rid of, and I'll talk about those first. They're all actually magical realism books. I first read magical realism when I was exploring different genres when I first started really getting into reading, and I decided I really don't like magical realism. It's a genre that I just can't wrap my head around. I've read many, well, not many, I've read a few magical realism books, and I just realized that it's definitely not for me, and so I think it's best if I get rid of these books because I know I'm not going to end up reading it. And the first one that I have is Lincoln and the Bardo by George Saunders. I believe this is magical realism because this follows President Lincoln's 11-year-old son, Willie, who died, and he comes back as a ghost. And the format that this is told is really wonky. It's I don't know if it's verse or if it's a play. This has got really good reviews. I mean, it was in the New York Times most notable books one year, and I found this for free, and I don't think I'm gonna ever read this book. It has ghosts and death and magical realism, and it's not my jam. I'm not gonna read this. The next book that I have is The Snow Child by Ian Ivey. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Irish. But this takes place in the 1920s in Alaska, and this couple really wants a baby, and they make a snowman, and the snowman turns into a child, and they take care of the child. It's super weird. I don't know. I am never going to read this book. Oh, and then weird things start happening to the child, and there's some magic stuff in here. Yeah, I'm not gonna read this book. The next one that I have is The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. This is about the Underground Railroad, and I think it's a couple who goes through it, and there's magical elements. Colson Whitehead is a phenomenal author. He just won a Pulitzer Prize, so he's a really cool guy, and he does a lot of really interesting work with literature and race, and this is probably a really good book. It's just not my genre. I have no desire to read this, but it was $2 at a library sale, so that's why I got it. And if you are interested in this book, I'm sure someone will get a lot out of this. I'm just not one of those people. So those are the only books that I have not read that I'm getting rid of. And the next books that I'm going to show you are books that I've read, not interested in rereading them, don't want them on my shelf. Some of these books I absolutely hate, so yeah. And honestly, a lot of this stuff isn't they're bad books. It's more I didn't connect with the book, and sometimes that happens. It's not you, it's me kind of situation. So some of these books I know a lot of people love, but for me it just really didn't hit the mark, so I'm getting rid of them. So the first book is one that I just talked about in a recent video, and that is Beyond the Point by Claire Gibson. You know my issues with this. There's slut shaming, sexism, really problematic comments on war, so yeah, getting rid of that. And then I'm also getting rid of The Girl the Sea Gave Back by Adrienne Young. I love Adrienne Young's first book, Sky in the Deep. She writes about Vikings and stuff, and it's super cool, but this book really fell flat for me. This also has some magical realism elements to it that I just could not wrap my head around, so I think that's why I really could not connect with this one, but I'm sure someone out there will probably really enjoy it. Another book that I'm getting rid of is Moonlight Over Paris by Jennifer Robson. I actually really enjoyed this book. This is a post-World War I romance novel, and it's good. I read it a couple years ago, but I don't think I'm ever going to return to it. I'm also getting rid of Even When You Lie to Me by Jessica Alcott. This is a YA novel. I read this a few years ago, and it was like a student-teacher relationship, but like there's nothing really smutty about it, and it wasn't enjoyable, so I'm getting rid of this. I'm also getting rid of Under the Tuscan Sun by Frances Mays. I read this last month, didn't care for it. Yeah, I complained about it there, so it's a very mediocre memoir. I'm getting rid of J.K. Rowling's Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them screenplay, and I thought this would have like really like unique content in it, like things that we didn't see in the movie, but it doesn't. It is literally just a screenplay for Fantastic Beasts, and if I wanted to like read, I don't want to read a movie, I'm just gonna watch the movie. So I thought there was gonna be more like content in here that we didn't get to see in the movie, but that's not true. So I'm getting rid of this. Also, J.K. Rowling has been really problematic, so it feels good to get rid of one of her books. I am also getting rid of The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I hated this book with every fiber of my being. Like, I hate this book so much, and I know it's very divisive. People either love it or hate it. I hated it, and it is huge, and I wanted to keep it on my bookshelf for a while just because I was like, yeah, I accomplished that huge book, but I hated this huge book, so why is it taking up space on my shelf? You tell me. I am also, this might be really surprising for a lot of people, but I'm getting rid of The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Okay, I enjoyed this book for what it was. World War II, two sisters, like, whatever, resistance fighting. I don't need another World War II book on my shelf. Like, there's so many of them out here. I thought this one was decent. Everybody loves it. I actually preferred The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. I think that's her better book, and it, honestly, I have that on my shelf. I'm keeping that one. But this one I actually got for free, so I might pass it off to one of my friends who's maybe interested in it, but I'm not, so I'm getting rid of it. I am also getting rid of Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I read this last summer, and I find it to be kind of problematic because I feel like Margaret Rogerson ripped off a bunch of other writers and like basically plagiarized them and made her own story, and this is just not an original fantasy book. So that's my biggest problem with that. Also, just wasn't really interested in it, so I am getting rid of this. I'm actually getting rid of books that I've read recently, so yeah, you've probably seen me talk more about them in other videos. And one of those books is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. Didn't care for this book. I'm never going to return to it. It makes me angry seeing it on my shelf, so yeah. I mean, it's not a bad book, it just wasn't for me. Also getting rid of The Bookish Life of Nina Hill by Abby Waxman. Very average book for me. It's taking up space. I'm never going to return to it. I'm getting rid of Cruel Beauty by Rosamund Hodge. I read this a couple years ago. This was a gift from my mom for Christmas one year. I think she bought it for me because she thought the cover was pretty, which it is. The book was very like an average fantasy novel, but Rosamund Hodge has made some problematic comments about IVF and stuff on Twitter, so yeah, I think it's time. Since I didn't love this book, I'm just gonna get rid of it. Also hated this book, Intercepted by Alexa Martin. I hate sports books. I hate sports, period. So I don't know why I read this. I thought it was gonna be super smutty. Ended up being like Basketball Wives, like super petty drama. Didn't like it. Getting rid of this. I also read this year, so you win some, you lose some. Also getting rid of Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I saw the movie before I read the book, and that was a mistake. Also, this copy is very beat up and water damaged, so I'm just gonna get rid of it. It's a decent thriller. I'm not a thriller person, so yeah, I'm just gonna get rid of it. I have another World War II book here, and that is All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. I actually got this in an airport. I got this at LaGuardia when I was flying back from New York City once, and because I finished the book that I was reading when I was there, so I was like, oh shoot, I should have brought more books. Anyways, I thought this book was, to put it lightly, boring. And it's a Pulitzer Prize winner. A lot of people love this book. I guess it's good. It's just another World War II book in my opinion, but whatever. It takes place in Paris. No, it takes place in France, not Paris, northern France. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of people will love this book, but I can't read another World War II book. I'm also getting rid of this romance, One Day in December by Josie Silver. Yeah, it is Silver. Okay. I read this 2 years ago. I think it's such an average romance novel, and I didn't like the ending. I didn't like what ended up happening, so I am getting rid of it. It's a good winter, like, Christmassy read. It takes place in London, so I'm sure someone will enjoy it. Then I'm getting rid of Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. I thought this book was really boring, and there's a lot of information about geisha in here, but like, I don't know how accurate it is. I don't know. I don't trust white men writing about Japanese culture, so I'm getting rid of this. Also getting rid of I've Got Your Number by Sophie Kinsella. This is a fine romance novel. It takes place in London. I think it's fine. Like, it's average to me. I haven't been a huge fan of Sophie Kinsella since I read I Owe You One last year, so I just don't think I'm going to return to this if I found it to be average then. I think I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. So it's about this girl who loses her phone, or she finds this guy's phone, and it's their romance. I'm getting rid of another World War II book, Codename Verity by Elizabeth Wein. I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. Again, this is about like a female pilot, which is super cool, but there's like so much information about planes and like espionage and stuff that I just like was not understanding. And I was like, this is probably too smart of a book for me, if I'm being honest. So I'm getting rid of this. I think I have friends who would really enjoy this book, but it's another World War II book. I can't. I'm not saying that all World War II books are bad. It's just there's so many of them in historical fiction that unless you're super creative about the story, they all blend together for me and they are all the same. That's why I like reading a lot of historical fiction books set in different time periods, because like there's some separation within the genre, you know? I just feel like World War II is an overdone topic in historical fiction, and unless it's really spectacular, it's not going to stand out. So, and then I have A Tyranny of Petticoats. This is an anthology edited by Jessica Spotswood. This is basically a bunch of short stories, historical fiction in different time periods following strong women. I am not the biggest fan of anthologies, so I'm getting rid of this one. And then last but not least, I am getting rid of Finnegan of the Rock by Melina Marchetta, or Marchetta. This is one of the most classic fantasy novels out there, I mean for YA fantasy. It's a traditional like medieval fantasy. If that is something that you're interested in, it's very like cool. I like a lot of the elements in here. Yeah, I don't know if I really care about medieval fantasy books. So I'm getting rid of this. Also, I remember reading it and thinking, okay, I'm never going to continue with the series. And so yeah, I'm going to get rid of this one. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more from me, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye!